If I was brand new at investing and being entrepreneurial and personal finance and I had $10,000 to play with, and we're talking about 2023, this is now, this is up to date. In this video, I'm going to go over exactly where I would be putting $10,000, whether it's in the market, real estate, a business, to make the most money and get the most out of $10,000. And I'm going to go over the 3 different situations that apply to basically everyone sitting with 10 grand that are like, yes, I want to invest this. Yes, I'm looking to retire. I want to make this. I want to make money on my money. What do I do? What are my goals? I think there are 3 paths that I would go, and one of the paths is probably representative of the place that you're in right now if you're asking yourself this question. And in today's video, we're going to go over all 3, and hopefully I will give you guys a good idea of what I would do depending on the situation that I was in. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing, liking the video. Both are free to do and really help me grow the channel and provide content to you guys. Okay, so before we get into it, if you have $10,000 free and clear to invest, what I want to make sure that you guys also have is a emergency fund. You should have 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, depending on where you live in the United States and what your relationship between income and cost of living is. You know, if you're in the Midwest or you're in a low cost of living area, 3 months is okay if you make decent money, if you know that it's easy to recoup that. But if you're in a high cost of living area like I am, 6 months is a little bit more important, where your living expenses are a little bit higher than what they would be relative to your income. But let's say you have 10 grand and that's all sorted out for. The first situation, so let's say you have $10,000, but it was hard to save that $10,000. Now I recognize it's hard to save $10,000 for everyone, but if it takes you more than a year to save the $10,000 to be able to invest in, and this might even be like more than 8 months, right? It's like 8 months to a year. If it takes longer than that to set away $10,000 to invest as savings, as long-term savings for your own wealth generation, what I would be doing in that situation is I would be reinvesting in myself to figure out how to bring my income up. And there are plenty of ways to do this with $10,000. And if you want to know how to do it for under $1,000, I made a video in the past that you can go check out. But for $10,000, you have options like boot camps. You have the option to probably take a break from your current job, use the $10,000 to support yourself, and put all of it into a boot camp. You could get a master's degree if you don't have a bachelor's degree. You could go get your bachelor's if you are like, you can't get a bachelor's or a master's for $10,000. I would highly recommend looking into different fields and looking into what comes from teaching assistants, scholarships, financial aid, all of those things. I would go specifically target something that makes more money. If you are part of this journey and you're already looking ahead, you're going to realize that how much money you make has a big impact whether you're going to work until you die, whether you're going to die working, quite literally, die working, whether you're going to be able to retire on time, or whether you're going to be able to retire early. And at some point, we all have the realization that sometimes maybe doing what we love to do sometimes isn't worth dying doing it when we're 90 years old because we've literally died because we couldn't retire on the work, on the hours of our job. So maybe you want to make a change. There are plenty of careers in the United States that will better your work-life balance. You could go fully remote and you can make more money, and just making sure that you have the education and the background to do that will get you into that field. So boot camps, master's, bachelor's degree, something in technology. That would be my recommendation. I'm already a mechanical engineer, and I do plan on transitioning at some point into my career into data science. I do a lot of data analytics now, so it just makes sense, and it will increase my income, so at some point I will go back and do that. But if it was hard to save $10,000, what I would be doing is taking a big portion of that money and making sure I'm reinvesting in myself so I can save that $10,000 in like a 4 to 6 month horizon or shorter. And with a change in degree where you move into a career where you're making 150K plus later in your career, but 100K, maybe a year from now, which is a real possibility if you make a change. Maybe 100K is a grasp, but maybe 2 years out from whatever you choose to do because you want to give yourself that entry level jump in what you're doing, you could make between 80,000 and 100K, let's say, 2 years out from whatever you're doing. And at that point, you should be able to set aside $10,000 in savings if you're budgeting the rest of your life out correctly, fairly easily. So that's what I would be doing in that situation. But let's say you're free and clear. You're saying $10,000, I can save that every, 6 to 8 months, let's say. Every 6 months I've got 10 grand and I can put that aside, barring the situations that come up in life. Don't set yourself too far out of it. Let's just say it's not a pain, let's say, to save $600 to $1,000 per month for your savings. Statistically, this is very few of you, but some of you might be in that position. So if this is the case, you're still not making enough money to make a massive jump and make some risky decision. So if I was in that position, I'd be putting that money into an ETF, probably tracking the S&P 500, specifically with the purpose of increasing that coffer of money until I can make a larger investment that would potentially have higher return, I'd start thinking about planning as that investment grows. Like even 10 grand, I'd start thinking about planning about diversification, maybe real estate. What are you doing with your current home? How can you increase your overall personal finance situation by maybe purchasing a home? And maybe that helps you at the end net more money than just investing 10 grand into an ETF or into a specific stock. You can also start exploring, if you have a little more time in your hands, using the $10,000 to pivot into a side hustle or a business that will then generate more money and make more of an income in the long run. But my guess is to $10,000, you're going to want to snug that away. Again, if you're in that sweet spot of like you're making good income, you don't have a ton of time, you can't add 20 hours a week onto your schedule for a side hustle or a business. Let's say for now, that $10,000, if I was in that situation, probably going into VTI or VOO, which are two ETFs that track the total stock market and the S&P 500. And again, I'm doing that in the short term just to increase that amount of money and that amount of investment that I can then have a better picture of my overall financial situation, how I invest the money as a larger sum. So for the very few of you, if you've lasted this far through and you're making, and you got $10,000, but that was accumulated in 1 to 3 months, which again, could be some of you guys, because it's not that hard to get into that situation if you plan and do all the right things. Let's say you're in a technical field, like you took the boot camp and you watched my first video. I would be taking that $10,000 and assuming that you're just asking where does the next $10,000 go, because you already have been saving. If it's your first $10,000, I'd kind of follow the chain of what I've said. Just put it into an S&P 500 right now, because that's what I would do. And this isn't financial advice, but if you aren't in that situation, I'd take the $10,000, let's say you're really starting to bring in income, and I'd make sure that your life is catered around your financial goals. So what I do right now is a lot of my passions and hobbies are businesses, so that I can explore them, I can do them, I can generate some income, and I can write off a lot of the things that I like to do. I love photography and videography. I have a YouTube channel. I actually have 2 YouTube channels. This one's not super successful. The other one's doing all right. But it allows me to buy new cameras, new gear, all of those things for the business, and then their expenses. So I get access to all the things. I mean, for some things, if you use it for personal use, you have to make sure you report it correctly on your taxes. But I'm lowering my tax burden. I'm keeping more of my money, and I'm generating some income off the things I love to do. I also can do things like own a home, which helps me increase my deductions and write-offs over the long term. It makes me not throw as much money away at a living situation. I recoup some of that money long term, so I'm stabilizing the rest of my personal finance life. I'm making sure I'm on track with all the other kind of food groups of finance when it comes to long-term success and personal finance and successful, retirement and all those types of things. So I'm making sure all those things are shored up. And then on top of that, then I'm thinking about how do I up my dollars coming in, because that's what's going to be most important. It's great to throw 10 grand into an ETF. We should always be doing that. You should have a drip that's just, if you're in the stage, you should have a drip that's putting money into your stock market account, whatever it is, your retirement 401k. You're probably not in a Roth. You've probably already outpaced, if it's easy to put 10 grand away, you probably outpaced having access to a Roth or being legally allowed to contribute to one. So in this case, I'd work on upping my income with those dollars, and maybe that's not just looking at it, investing it, and seeing it grow year over year. It's trying to figure out a side hustle, or where can I put that money that's going to generate money back to me? And this might be something that's a life choice. Maybe that isn't what you want to do, but if you're a hustler, maybe that is what you want to do, and you can use the $10,000 to kickstart a business, but also hire an employee immediately to lower your hourly burden on the business. It's a little bit more of a risk, but you've got that coffer there of 10 grand, not a ton of money, but in reality, that should, depending on the business, carry you 3 to 4 months of life cycle, even if you're generating no money on an employee being under your purview. But that's a deeper concept, but those are the things that I'd be doing. I'd be looking at how do I drastically increase the revenue on my invested money and make sure I still have both food groups in the personal finance spectrum of what I'm doing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you took something away here that is going to benefit you in long-term life, and I'll see you guys in the next video.